Good evening, Razorback fans. Welcome to another episode of the Hog Talk Podcast, live from the Sterling Soap and Roastery Studios, part of the Believe and Buzz Radio Network, where you can hear us each week on 106.7 Buzz 2 in Central Arkansas. All live shows are brought to you by Arkansas Brewing Company in downtown Ozark. I'm Porter Hayes. Alongside me, as always, is Adam Hall. On tonight's show, we'll give a rundown of the Arkansas-Arizona loss in March Madness. Florida sweeps Arkansas baseball, and then softball takes the series against Florida in over the weekend. And then in the second segment, we'll break down the UConn Duke game and other college basketball news. I don't know. That was weird. I froze there for a second. So,
didn't know.
But yes, it's been a minute since it seems like a week since Arkansas, Arizona has played. 109-88 loss to the Wildcats. And Adam, it was one of those. It's like the same song and dance when Arkansas gets to the Elite Eight or Sweet 16. They run into a team that's just overpowering. I know this is going to piss some people off. It just shows Arkansas is not an elite program. Mm-hmm. They're a good program. They're a great program, but they're not an elite program because you look at the teams that have beat them over the past years in the Elite Eight, Sweet 16s, and it just seemed like Arizona was far and above Arkansas all night long in the game.
Arkansas was definitely outmatched. Going back and looking at it, I mean, Arkansas shot 22% from 3-point. Arizona shot 63%. They were up only 5 for 8 from 3, so they're very selective on theirs. They don't shoot many threes as a team. I mean, we talked about rebounds being a thing or being a potential issue. Arizona only out-rebounded Arkansas 30-28, so it was relatively close. Arkansas had more steals. Arkansas had more blocks. I mean, it was a game that Arkansas had fewer turnovers just outside of, Darius Acuff at 28 points. You had Billy Richmond with 13, Malik Thomas with 17, and then, 8, 7, 6, 2, 7. So, I mean, it was a game that nobody else really got going. Arizona basically had their way with Arkansas the entire game. This is another game that it shows something we've been talking about for a while now, that Calipari has got to find true bigs. Not bigs that can shoot the three, not stretch fours, stretch threes. I mean, if you have those players already, great, but you don't need to go get another one of those guys. With Malik Ewan and Nick Pringle, obviously, I mean, we started to get a bit from Malik Ewan there at the end. I kind of look at it as those were 2 failed transfer portal transactions, if you will. So the big man issue needs to be addressed. We looked at last season and who was going to be like that guy to be able to come in and take over and have the ball in his hands in the final few minutes of the game. Well, we got that with Darius Acuff Jr. We looked at defensive issues this season, and Jordan Smith Jr., number 3 overall player in the nation, how that is, and he was the Naismith and Gatorade Player of the Year, is beyond me. He's the number 1 player in the nation in my book. He's not as good offensively, but he's better defensively than Darius Acuff Jr. So I think that's something we're trading things off here, but you have to find these other pieces. So you've addressed one issue from the season before. Now you're addressing this issue with defense potentially. We've got to address the big issue. You've got to go find bigs, and I don't think it's going to be a freshman. An incoming. We don't currently have an incoming freshman, but I know there's some 2027 bigs that Cal's trying to get reclassified to 2026. I don't think that that's the resolution that you need for immediate help. I think they've got to be from the portal. They've got to be established big men. And let's try to not get bigs off teams that aren't good. Yeah. Because then I think their stats are skewed a little bit when they're on a bad team, because they are kind of the focal points of these teams. I think you're going to have to go try to find a big on a good team and pay him a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because you seen what Grievous did all night. I mean, Koa Pete, you talk about a freshman that was 6'8". We talked about it on the last show. The way they were moving, they knew Arkansas could not play defense, and how they were attacking Arkansas. They were not setting up in a half court off. They were attacking to the rim. And if the plan didn't work out, then they were backing out. There was a lot of talk about, Arizona's 39 free throws, and they keep doing that. And Duke, they shot 8 threes the whole game. Like they are what a UConn, Duke, Arizona. They're using that low post. They're using the twos. They're not shooting up 33s. Arkansas shot 23 threes. They went 5 of 23. So it's this whole thing. I was talking to some buddies. This new old school Princeton offense. They called it live and die by the three. We're seeing a lot of teams do this. And somebody was asking about Duke. I think there was 5 or 6 teams that are still left, or now we're at the Final Four, but at the point, it was like the Elite Eight. I think 5 of those teams ranked in the 100s and above in 3-point attempts per game. I think Illinois was the only one that wasn't, and they were they ranked 12th. They shot a lot of threes. But other than that, Duke, UConn, Arizona, Michigan, they don't shoot a lot of threes. So when you have this, you're going to have to use your bigs, because if you're relying, and Acuff was not a 3-point, he could make threes, but he likes the mid-range. He had 28 points again, but he had 14 free throws. When you look at what I'm saying about the 3-point, Darius Acuff is a testament to that. He scored 28 points, and 14 of his points come from the free throw line. He was able to get to the free throw line. So you got to have more people like that. You look at Arizona, and Pete had 21, Burries had 23, Grievous and Bradley had 14, and then Yvonne had 15. That's what it's going to take to beat these teams. And either if you're going to shoot a lot of threes, you better have some Pat Bradleys on your team that can bury the threes, that can shoot 10, 15 threes a game, or you're going to have to switch to where you're going to go get some bigs, out rebound, and get the low post points.
Do we think that Malik will come back? I think with Malik Thomas, and I'm going to put Billy Richmond in the same boat. I think that they're going to go test the draft waters, go to the combine, get some grades, and then make a determination. I would see Billy Richmond coming back before I would see Malik Thomas coming back. But I feel like Malik is maybe 50-50, and maybe I'm just over hyping that or over believing that. For some reason, I just have this gut feeling that he's going to return for one more season. All the hoopla and shenanigans that you're seeing in Malik Thomas in a Kentucky jersey, not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's wishful thinking on their part. So, and I get it. We're coming up on portal season here soon. But I think that I hope that you see Malik Thomas and Billy Richmond both return. DJ Wagner, I would like to return for one more season, with the younger guards come in and develop more on this veteran role off the bench. But I can also see him going to the portal for one last season to get some substantial minutes with another team. Who would that be? I don't know, but I could see DJ Wagner moving on for a year. One thing that I would like to see, and we're seeing it with teams that were in the Elite Eight and now Final Four, Michigan, Illinois, Iowa, Arizona, these teams that have foreign players that actually get to play and are actually decent. I look at the foreign players that Arkansas brought in as failed roster spots for whatever reason. I know 1 or 2 dealt with injury. I know one was the plan. I think Semedo was going to redshirt more or less no matter what. I just look at these guys like, what did we bring them in for? Are they even going to be on this roster next season? Mm-hmm. I'm just to the point that, and I think DP brought this up last night. You think back to some of the other John Calipari teams that were successful, and we've talked about this before with Devin Booker, Reed Shepherd, players that came off the bench for John Calipari. I get his point behind not doing this right now because of the transfer portal and because of NIL and players wanting playing time and getting paid and not wanting to deal with the headache of all that. But I feel like we also need to look at, or Calipari needs to look at, bringing back teams that he has different lineups. So you're having to have 10 to 11 guys to rotate in different way, bring them in different waves. And I get it in today's game that's hard to do because players wanting their playing time. But I mean, Reed Shepard was still drafted third in the NBA draft whenever he went. Devin Booker was still, I believe, a lottery pick around 15, 14, maybe higher. But these are guys that came off the bench for John Calipari. He's still going to get you to the NBA, which is the end goal. And we talked about that was his main objective, was getting players to the NBA. And I just feel like that he may need to revisit potential. I mean, bring in 10 to 12 guys to these rosters and have them in ways
play the rotation
and play the rotation game with them.
I wonder how much, and this might get brought up later on down the road. You know how we hear things after the fact, or not excuses, but man, I wonder how much Carter Knox being out affected the rotation, because you've seen earlier in the year, Malik Thomas was coming off the bench and playing really well. I wonder how much putting him into that starting role and then that starting lineup not necessarily messed things up, but affected Malik Thomas. Because I think Malik Thomas comes back? I think, like you said, it's 50-50. Should he? I think he should absolutely come back. I think him and Billy Richmond, they're great players, but they need more maturity. The shove, I don't care if the kid flopped. It was a shove. Now, did the kid sell it? Absolutely, because they knew the game was already getting out of hand. I mean, that was boneheaded. Pringle, you're going to have to get some guys that, one, you're playing against 24, 25, 26-year-old men. And I know Cal hates that, and he talks about, these guys on their third marriage, blah, blah, blah. But that's what it's going to take. You're going to have some grown men who know how to keep their head cool if you're going to make it to a Final Four and win a national championship. Because of things like that, you've seen how quickly the game was within reach. I don't think Arkansas still would have won the game, but it was within reach to make a run, and they just totally let it get out of hand. Sloppy play, poor fouls, and Arizona being that team, whether it was a flop or a flop, you played into the hand of the refs. I mean, you took the bait. So I'm sorry. Should it have been awarded a flagrant 2 and him get ejected? Absolutely not. But I do believe that at that point in the game, they were trying to not let this thing to where there was a brawl, because that's where it was headed. Like, I had a feeling that if they would have kept on, somebody was going to get in a fight. Something was going to go down, and it was going to be very bad. It just had that feeling. So I think they were making a standard. I do want to go back to his previous comment. I'll mention this when we go into baseball talk here in a minute, but anyways, it was a flop, still a flop, but it's like that kid in high school that takes the charge and he looks at the ref and smile. It still he should not have put himself in that position to commit that foul.
No, and we've seen multiple times throughout this season, last season, when it comes to Billy Richmond, we've seen it with other players, Carter Knox, Trevin Brazil especially. They let the opposing team and they let the game get into their head. And some of these players need to look at too, especially the ones that are eyeing the NBA draft. If you don't think that it's going to be 10 times worse once you go to the G League or the NBA of players trying to get your head and the trash talking and whatnot, like it happens a heck of a lot more. So there's definitely some growth there that needs to happen on the players' part. And it's not just Arkansas players, it's players across the country. But with these guys, I mean, I'd look at, with the way NIL is, with the way that the NBA is, if you're not a lottery pick and you're not a guaranteed lottery pick, I don't understand why you want to jump to the NBA unless you're just balls to the wall. Like, I don't want to play college basketball anymore. because the amount of money that can be made, especially if you are a starter or a major player for your team, and on a team like Arkansas that has the money,
Mm-hmm.
why wouldn't you stay until you can guarantee that you're a lottery pick? I just
Absolutely.
think that at this day and age, with the risk of ending up in the G League, and because not all players have it in them to do what Jordan Walsh did, what
Yeah.
Nick Smith Jr. is still doing on playing the G League circuit, trying to earn your spot onto an NBA roster. A lot of these guys just don't have it in them.
Moses Moody was another one. I mean, look, it takes a dog. Look, when I was covering a lot of the D1s, the Razorbacks, the women's programs, and a lot of girl high schoolers were saying, asking, what's the difference between, can I go to D1 softball and play? Can I go to basketball, D2? There is a different world between high school and college when it becomes your life. It is your job. You have to be a special, unless you're just absolutely talented, worldly talented. You can get by with athleticism over, everything being your job. But for the most part, you're going from being the best person at your school to you are just another person, or you're not even starting. You don't know adversity. You've never faced adversity. And sometimes it's hard to get your head wrapped around of, I really got to work for this. Mm-hmm. And you look at the Jordan Walshes, the Knicks, Darius Acuff, the kid went from not being really talked about that much outside of Arkansas to could potentially win the National Player of the Year because his work ethic. Basically Cal had to tell him you were sitting. That's what we need more of. Malik doesn't have that yet. And I think because when you talk about getting drafted, yeah, you can get drafted, cool. But if you don't think that their rotations on the NBA rosters, 8-9 players, and a solid 7 or 8 in the playoffs, you're going to wind up in the G League. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be bouncing around, because if you don't have what it takes and you don't have the dedication, you're going to be stuck in the G League on 10-day contracts or hoping for a 2-week contract, and you're going to be lost. Mm-hmm. You need that. You talk, and we'll next segment when we're talking about the Dukes and the UConns and how crazy Dan Hurley is. It takes a coach like that to get the best out of who you are. And sometimes I think Cal has that edge where he knows he can get them there, but sometimes I think that the kids that go there, some of them just think they're there to chase a bag and get to the NBA, and then they don't think they have to work for
it. 100%. I don't know if you've seen this clip. I've got it down here. It's from Dawn Staley, South Carolina's coach. And she's talked about a lot throughout March Madness press conference, post-game, pre-games, etc. But this one's about overprotected kids becoming unprepared adults. Mm-hmm. And, you can't shelter your child from every hard moment and then expect them to handle adversity when it counts. This is something that we've talked about a lot when it comes to these players when they're developing, their coaches that surround them basically being yes men, and parents essentially trying to be their agents early on and, not telling them no, all this stuff. But I think this especially plays into some of the players that Arkansas seen and across the NCAA when these players and these talents are coming in to a different world. So I'm going to play this right quick. Okay.
When you allow your children to grow up, it is a direct reflection of your parenting. Direct. Like if you hover over them all the time and they can't work through problems, they're going to have some issues, But you got to let them work through problems because they're working through the things that you've instilled in them.
Yeah, absolutely. Frank Martin, when he was, ironically, when he was at South Carolina, said the same thing. Gino has said the same thing. We'll get into that again when we talk about the women's basketball and trying to grow that. But it's tough when you're dealing with players have more power than they've ever had. They want the money, but a lot of them want the money, but they don't want the responsibility that comes with making that money. And I'm sorry, you're seeing the teams that are winning, they are trusting the process.
Mm-hmm.
You see the teams that are, and look, I've been diehard UConn women's basketball fan since the mid 90s. My dad was stationed in Connecticut. I followed them all the way since Rebecca Lobo. Shay Ralph, the coach at Vandy, is my favorite all-time UConn player. She was a dog. She was one of those that wasn't highly recruited, but was their point guard and led them to a national championship. She played it the right way. But you ask any of these players that play for Gino, they hate him at times, but he demands excellence. I went up to Fayetteville and watched Colby Hill, one of his practices. He had a two-time All-American on his team, and how he was directing her and how he was talking to her and putting her on the sideline just he was the freshman walk-on. It impressed me because you don't see that out of coaches. And he was saying it out in the open. If you were over in Bud Walton Arena, you could hear how he was directing his players. You don't see that much. And then you wonder why you're not winning championships. You're not getting to this point. You're always failing is because of that. Because if you don't like it, you're just going to go to the next school. And you know what? If you want to chase bags and you want to get to the NBA, awesome. But if you want to win championships, you have to hold yourself to a different standard. You have to play at a different level, and your mentality has to be on a different level, or you're never going to win a national championship.
Mm-hmm. There's a completely different level to the coaching and the philosophies and these teams that are able to win and continue to win. We'll get more to Dan Hurley here after the break and whatnot, but some of it's psychotic borderline and some of it's just, like I said, good foundation, good philosophy, etc. I mean, find your niche, whatever works. It's just some of these teams, these rosters, these players are the coaches. Something has got to change. And I feel like, okay, so now we just finished year 2 of Coach Cal, going back to this. I think the criticism, and let's remember, there is constructive criticism. I feel like we can be nitpicky at this point. We've had 2 seasons of Sweet 16 exits. So what's going to happen next?
Yep.
How are we going to go a step further? How are we going to get to the Elite Eight, the Final Four? And I think you have to address these issues that we have, whether defense, it's bigs, all of these other things. You've got to figure out how you're going to put it together, because I understand your goal, because you've said it, your main objective is getting these players to the NBA. I 100% agree that, but you still have a goal to who hired you, to the university that you're coaching for, to bring home championships. And I still feel like that should be one of the goals you should be trying to attain, and not just being like, oh, as long as I get 3 to 4 guys every year to the NBA draft, I'm doing my job. There's more to your job than just getting players to the league.
Yeah, and I've stated my thoughts. I mean, I think that, and I'm, again, I could be speculating, but just my thing is, I think that's his headspace. He will sit there and tell the Razorback clubs, and he'll tell the people, and he'll tell John Tyson, I want my goal is to bring a national championship to the University of Arkansas. But I think if you really gave him true serum, I'm bringing kids to get them to the NBA. If we win a national championship, it's a bonus. But you still have to – you're held to a higher standard. You're held to the Dave Van Horn standard, the standard of the baseball program, College World Series. That's where your standard is as a program. That's an elite program. And when you want to compare that litmus test to the basketball team, well, they were 0-5 against top-ranked teams this year. You didn't beat a single top team this year. You cannot consider that an elite program, because you're still getting to you're teetering on, depending on how next year goes, you're teetering on Eric Musselman having more success at Arkansas than Coach Cal.
If you don't get to an Elite Eight,
3 Sweet 16s in a row, and you had Eric Musselman make 2 Elite Eights, you're teetering on that. I know that is a tough pill to swallow, but I'm talking about when you talk about the program, where it's at. Now, I'm not saying where he left it, or I'm not saying that Coach Cal is isn't a better coach than Musselman. I'm just talking about what Musselman did at Arkansas compared to what Cal's doing. You're teetering on. The expectation is bigger for Cal than it was Musselman. Musselman is get our program back on the map. He got us to two Elite Eights. Hey, that's good. But your expectations of being Cal, it's Elite Eights and Final Fours and national championships.
We'll see what happens. And that's the thing is, like, with the criticism and the critiquing and whatnot, like, I think it's warranted. And it's not that we're saying, like, oh, Cal needs to go. Don't think that for 1 second.
I want to ask this real quick, because this is and I might even post this. I really want your opinion, and I do not think a College World Series and a Sweet 16 is the same level. I think you got to go beyond that. I think it's Elite Eight and Final Four.
I would go with Elite Eight and step further than the Sweet 16. To me, Elite Eight is going to Omaha.
Yeah. I think that, I think that's the same. So that's the point. I mean, and also, I mean, Arkansas got lucky, but yet they ran into a juggernaut in Arizona. I think Arizona wins it all. I had Duke in my bracket, and we'll talk about that after the break, how the fumble. But to me, Elite Eight and the College World Series, and maybe it's because the 8 teams or whatever, but it's harder to make that Elite Eight because eventually you're going to run into a 1 or a 2 seed, to get to that point. And College World Series, you're going through a regional and a super regional to get to Omaha. So that was my point on that. When it comes to holding the standard. But I mean, that's because Dave Van Horn, again, what we talked about last week, a pop fly from winning a national championship. So, I mean, he was a second away from winning it all, and how that one play totally could change his legacy, that one play, because you catch the pop fly. What is his legacy with the national championship opposed to where it is now? And we'll get into that. We'll do a little rundown before we hit the break. But Arkansas baseball got swept by Florida. They're 19-10 on the year, 4-5 in conference play, dropped to 9th place in the standings. And then the softball team took 2 or 3 from Florida. They are 30-5 on the year, 5-4 in conference. And they have Auburn at Bogle next weekend. So, and yeah, I mean, it is, but
the entire NCAA tournament is one and done.
But so is your regionals and super regional. It's a different animal when it comes. I mean, you're comparing apples to oranges, the process, because to me, I think it's harder to go to the College World Series, and because you're having to beat teams 2 out of 3 times, or if you don't get a good draw, you're having to go to their place and beat them at their place. Not get lucky and beat them, have a good run. You've got to beat them 2 to 3 to get to the College World Series. But that's where College World Series, Elite Eight, to me, is even.
Well, during the break, I'm going to go cry about the drop pop fly.
Sorry, I keep on bringing that up. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break, hear a word from our sponsors, and then we'll get into the Duke UConn game, college basketball, women's college basketball, and more. We'll wrap up the show, but we'll be right back after a break. Searching for premium grooming products that will take your daily routine to the next level? Look no further than Sterling Soap Company. Our handmade soaps, aftershaves, and balms are made with only the finest ingredients that give you the ultimate grooming experience. With a variety of scents to choose from, there's something for everyone. Plus, our products are crafted in small batches to ensure the highest level of quality. So why wait? Visit www.sterlingsoap.com or visit our retail store at 16 West Walnut Street in Paris, Arkansas. Shop our collection and discover the difference for yourself. Upgrade your grooming routine with Sterling Soap Company. Are you looking for a place to grab a cold drink and some delicious food? Look no further than Arkansas Brewing Company. Located at 201 South 1st Street in beautiful downtown Ozark, our establishment offers a wide selection of craft beers and tasty eats. But what sets us apart is our welcoming atmosphere and friendly staff. At Arkansas Brewing Company, you'll always feel like part of the family. So visit Destiny and Christopher Brockett and staff today and see for yourself what makes us the go-to spot for locals and visitors alike. Arkansas Brewing Company, come for the drinks and stay for the friends. Attention DIYers and home improvement enthusiasts. Are you searching for the right tools and the supplies to tackle your next project? Look no further than Mentor's Hardware Store. With locations in Ozark, Alma, and Clarksville, our vast selection of hardware and building materials is sure to have everything you need. Whether you're fixing a leaky faucet or building a new deck, plus our knowledgeable staff is always on hand to offer expert advice and guidance. And with our competitive prices and convenient online ordering, Mentor's Hardware Store is your one-stop shop for all your DIY needs. Visit us today and let's build something amazing together. Are you looking to take your career to the next level? Look no further than ATU Ozark Campus. As a 2-year satellite campus of Arkansas Tech University, we're dedicated to a quality workforce education, industry partnerships for in-demand jobs, and tailored paths for success. Our programs are led by industry professionals. Whether it's a certificate or you're aiming for a graduate degree, ATU Ozark has you covered. Visit our website at www.atu.edu/Ozark or contact us at 479-667-2117. Your future begins here. Welcome to Ozark Area Chamber of Commerce, where our mission is simple: encourage, promote, and aid an enduring environment of shared economic opportunity and civic development for the Ozark, Arkansas area. Whether you're a local business owner or a resident, we've got something for you. Shop our unique local businesses, explore the beauty of Ozark, and savor local flavors and find cozy accommodations. Join us in building a stronger community. And to learn more, contact us at 479-667-2525. Remember, together we thrive. And welcome back to the Hog Talk podcast. And before the break, we were talking about baseball, and just there's a lot of people. Again, you're 19-10 on the year. You get swept by Florida. Pitching was just atrocious this weekend, and this is why, again, when you're looking at the expectations of this program and the pressure of the baseball program to kind of hold the fans over to a football season that we know is not going to be very good, and that's where everybody is just waiting on Dave Van Horn to finally win it all. And I know there's got to be an immense pressure on him to win it all. But this team's got a lot of questions, and it was funny. You go into the Mississippi State series and you're like, okay, this team's got some questions, and then they bounce back and prove us wrong. And then we're like, oh, well, let's see what happens. And then you get swept by Florida. It's just, South Carolina is bad. And we knew that they were bad. But it's one of those that you go back to 23 and 24, you lost 16 games as a whole, your whole season. 24, 25 last year, you lost 15 games all season long, and you're already teetering on 10 losses. That just gives you a perspective of where this team's at compared to the last couple of years.
This was a rough weekend. I mean, losing 9-4 game 1, 7-4 game 2, then coming out game 3 and Florida getting 17 hits or something like that. I mean, it was I don't even want to say that Arkansas is a Jekyll and Hyde team, because I feel like they've been teetering on this for the majority of the season. Like, we don't know who they are, what they are, whatever the case may be. I'm not saying that I've lost all hope for this season. I think we just didn't expect to be 19-10 or whatever we are right now. Obviously, we played the whole it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, it's this, it's that. But there's just something off about this team, and I don't know what it is. I feel like, I said this last night on HQ, that I look at teams and coaches, and I used Courtney Deifel as my example of making a change on our coaching staff, bringing in Gasso. And, we look at this baseball staff, and year after year we get the the fire Nate Thompson comments or the this and that. I just look at it like at what point is the loyalty aspect going to change with some of these coaches, and you do what's best for you in this program if you need to make a change with your assistant coaches? And I just feel like that maybe that's what needs to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you talk about, and there's a lot of, people talking about Hobbs, between Thompson and Hobbs, I mean, there's a lot of heat, but again, it goes to the point to where the way Arkansas is perceived, you would think they'd had a national championship because they're talked about up there with the likes of every other team in the SEC, one of the top programs in the SEC. But it's like you're one of the best golfers in the world. You don't have that green jacket yet. You're going to the Masters and you're able to go, walk the greens and play the course and be at the Masters, but you're the only one that doesn't have the green jacket. That's where Arkansas baseball is, and I know that's got to be a tough spot to be the one. You're the only major program in the SEC that does not have one. And I know that's got to be a sucky feeling because of how close you were, but still yet you still have to, if you want the praise and you want the fans and you want to get the best players in, you want the money, you want all the best facilities. Outside of Razorback fans, there's no sympathy. There's no sympathy at all of you being 19-10 right now because you have the hunts, you have all the money, you have the facilities, you have the coaching staff. There should be no reason why you're not competing for the College World Series every year, and you should have had a national championship by now. So it's a tough pill to swallow, but we're seeing again what we've been leading up to for this whole year. And let's go back to last year, Adam. If your baseball program starts going downhill, you're counting on them to always be good and generate this money and this revenue and this NIL. Well, all you're going to have left is baseball or basketball, because football it might win 2-3 games this year. Might. 3 games. So as a program, how are you going to get better? Where's the path? Where's the torch going to go? Are they going to bring Vitello back? Would that be a thing where it revives the program? And to me, even though he hasn't won a national championship, Dave Van Horn still has earned the right to go out on his own terms. I don't think they should force him out, but. And I'm not saying it should be this year. We'll see, because in 18-19, they lost 20 games and made it to the College World Series. You beat Ole Miss to go to the College World Series. Yes, you went 0-2 in barbecue in Omaha, but the questions are the topic has to be talked about. Has to be, because you're looking at the program as a whole and the expectations. Because your expectations compared to results, you could say that in basketball, you could say that in football. You're one of those programs that everybody talks about. You talk a lot, but the results are not being met with how much this fan base loves you as a whole, and they want you to succeed, but nothing. The fans aren't getting anything in return when it comes to expectations and results.
I wonder from like the other fans, whether watching or not watching, whatever. But a question I have for them is, what changes would they make right now to this team, whether it's coaching, whether it's players? Because I'm just curious, do fans think that this is a coaching issue? And I'm not on the boat of, I don't think it's a Dave Van Horn issue to an extent. Do you make a move with one of your assistant coaches? Do you do that mid-season? Do you wait till the end of the season? Do they need to have a come to Jesus meeting, right now with the hitting and pitching coaches to figure out what's going on? I don't know what the answer is. But no, I do agree that Dave Van Horn has earned the right to go out how he sees fit. And I don't think that that's anytime soon. I don't think it's going to be this season. I still think that there's good, solid 4 to 5 years in there. but something's got to change because what's going on this season isn't working.
Well, and another thing, you think about this. You're a program that has the best of the best. You have everything given to you. The players that come have the best facilities. You have one of the best coaching staff. You have one of the best ballparks. You have all this at your hands. So where is the want to? Where's the drive? Where's the dog? We're talking about dogs and like a cuff. Where's the leader of this team at? Where's the one guy that is wanting this program to get better? Who's the sounding board for this program? Who's your captain? And that's where it goes to. If you, again, want to get to the College World Series and you want to win it all, you can have all the talent in the world, but you got to have that sounding board for your program. You have to have that true captain, that true leader that is going to hold everybody accountable. They're going to hold themselves accountable. And also with the coaching staff, have they become complacent? We talked about Deifel and the tough decision she had to make of bringing in Gasso. To kind of cut ties with one of her best friends and one of the coaches that have been there from the beginning. Where is that loyalty of, okay, I'm going to give this one last 2 to 3 year run? What changes do you have to make? Is it internally? Is it one of the things you go back old school? We ain't giving you nothing. You're not getting these cool retro jerseys. You're not getting these cool hats. We're going back to the basics. We're going to make you earn what you have. I remember when I was at Connor State, one of the top JUCO programs in the country. Scottie Pippen's nephew was on the team. They were ranked 3rd, 4th in the country behind West Ark at the time. And they got beat by North Ark, one of the worst programs in the league. And Coach Muse over there made them wear the 1980s, 1990s jerseys for 2 games, old school V-cut. And until you start playing like a top program, you're going back and wearing the old school uniforms. And that's just what he did. Well, you go on a winning streak and you earn things back. Is it a culture problem within the locker room? They're expecting the best. They expect entitlement. Is that part of it?
Is it kind of like we've talked about with basketball? It's just a group of guys that are more worried about getting to major league than winning a national title. Yeah. And, like DP says here, and we've said it multiple times, go buy a major league pitcher. We've seen other teams do it. So, and I think that's been a key missing piece. Multiple seasons, been right there, but, starting pitcher. Paul here thinks that we need a real athletic director. Huh? We've been on that boat for a long time now.
Yeah.
So there's multiple things here I think you could address, but I do kind of agree with the statement and question on, is there some complacency here with the coaching staff? And I think a lot of times that's the answer more often than not, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's the thing. It could be there's a lot of things that are going on with the program as a whole and a lot of sports. I think the baseball program, and from a fan standpoint, is we know they're going to be good. That crutch of, okay, they're going to be good. They're going to get to the super regional, but what if that starts going down? You're not going to be able to rely on that. So again, there's still, and the reason why we're throwing caution to this, there's still a lot of baseball to be played. They could bounce back, and again, they could prove us wrong, but the way things are looking right now, you have you got Missouri State coming up, and then you go to Auburn this weekend. So chance to really bounce back and get back on track. But when you're supposed to be, we've said this many times, when you're supposed to be one of the top programs, you're going to get treated like you're supposed to be one of the best programs, and it's unacceptable, to be 19-10 at this point in the season. Sorry. So, but moving on, again, segueing into March Madness, and talking about, Duke and UConn and the craziness that happened, and coaches. I mean, that play, you talk about boneheaded decisions, and one play can really cost you a whole season. And what was funny is Duke losing the game, and then the clip comes out of them in film study practicing what they would do in that scenario, and to drop the ball like that. I mean, that just shows you in the heat of the moment, what would you do? And Duke, I can't remember, was it the Furman game where they beat something 80? They stole the ball and hit a three. It was almost a similar situation in a game where Furman upset somebody. I can't remember the team, but the way Duke gave the ball away and UConn hit that 30-foot three-pointer to win. I mean, tough way to lose, but man, you got a hold of the ball there.
Yeah, I don't understand trying to advance the ball like that. Get the ball and hold it and make them foul you.
Mhm.
Go to the other end. And even Coach Schreier was sitting there like yelling past the ball, or what. In that instance, I don't see why that's what you're yelling. That's what y'all are coaching. I don't understand that. I get that you had, I think, a couple players down the court, Snowburden, but at the same time, stop trying to advance the ball.
Yeah,
you make them come to you and make them foul you. You had the lead in the game at the free throw line. So I think it was a boneheaded move on all accounts for all parties involved. I think it was poor coaching, and I think it was poor on the players' part. I'm not, if you want to call it low basketball IQ, whatever the case may be, but this is a situation that, I mean, you practiced and should be practiced. You literally dropped the ball there, and it cost you royally. It ended your season. So this is something, it's going to haunt the players, or most of them, but the other ones that are going to be moving on to the NBA probably don't care. But it was a boneheaded move, and it shouldn't have happened.
yeah. And you have the Final Four set. UConn will play Illinois, and then Arizona, Michigan. So 2 1 seeds on the right side, and then you have a 2 seed and a 3 seed meeting in the other. So my bracket was, I got up to second, my company bracket, but then the Elite Eight happened, and then the Final Four happened. So I'm totally out of it now. But you go to the women's side, and we're talking about trying to grow the game, and poor Arkansas. They lost 5 kids to the transfer portal. I just seen where Jenna Lawrence just entered the transfer portal from Farmington. So you're talking about help, and you're talking about NIL, and you're talking about building programs. It's almost like they just left the basketball program out to be slaughtered. I hate it. They let Mike Neighbors go. It wasn't working because he wasn't getting the NIL help. There was a lot of talk about, well, they can do this. They've had this player and that player. But like we talked about before we started recording, when you've got bigger programs taking your stars and their role players on their rosters and they're paying them money, you're never going to have a successful program if you're not letting them have it. NIL.
Mm-hmm.
And thank goodness Chelsea Dungy was a part of the team before NIL came, or she would have been another person that would probably left to get more money, or Arkansas would have been. I mean, it's the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of heat was on Neighbors, but you're as good as your next job. And he is now at his second WNBA program. He was with the LA Sparks. Now he's with the Dallas Wings. So I feel for the new coach. And when you have the roster that you have and you're losing 5 off of that and not knowing where you're going to get the NIL and the support, and we talk about these international players, they don't have to pay them the NIL that's international. So you're going to continue seeing this. But until the women's programs start getting support like the men's, but when you have, again, like we need a real AD, when you have an AD that's barely able to fund his football program, I really do feel for the women's side of things, because outside of Deifel and you have Colby Hale, what do you got when it comes to support and NIL? And if you lose Deifel, if she gets to the point where she's not getting NIL and they're not able to make the Women's College World Series because of that, what's going to happen if she goes to a program where they support women's programs and they give them the NIL funds that they need to have a successful program?
Because what we're seeing in women's basketball is exactly what Alabama in football was doing. They're stacking their rosters. They're buying players from other schools, players that were playing 20, 30 plus minutes. They're joining teams to play 6 minutes a game, if that. So it's something that, your South Carolina, UConn, LSU, you've got a handful of these teams that, they're just going out and spending the money because they're getting NIL with it. So your women's basketball teams across the country, obviously mainly Arkansas for us, it's going to be difficult, especially when you're in a conference that has a few of these teams that are stacking their rosters.
Yep.
So it's going to be a long journey for Arkansas women's basketball, just due to the fact that I'm not going to say when it'll change when they get funding, because I just don't see it happening.
No, they're not. I mean, they're not going to get the funding. It's been again, when you look at the reality of your AD, he's not gonna. He doesn't like NIL at all. And you're saying that your football program's not set up to win a national championship. Where do you think that leaves your program? I'm looking at, let's see, roster. Jones, she was a senior. So Talia Jones is a senior. You lost Bonnie to the transfer portal. She was averaging 10.2 points a game. Jenna Lawrence was averaging 7. She's gone. Hermione Ware, 7.5. She's gone. Emily Robinson Jr. So she's a senior coming back. And Marion Archer, she's a redshirt junior. Jenna Lawrence is a junior. So they're leaving for their senior year to go somewhere and play. But I mean, you've lost 3 of your top 4 starters right off the jump.
Yeah.
On a team, mind you, that only won 12 games.
One conference game, I believe.
Yes, and that was, I think, the very last one against Auburn.
Yeah.
So your football team and your women's basketball team is going to be in the same boat next year. There's going to be, I mean, you see what happened. You're going to take it's going to take talent to rebuild this thing, but I guarantee you they're going to regret letting Mike Neighbors go. I mean, that's just what it's going to come down to, it, because you're not getting the help. You're not getting, and thank goodness you have a softball program and a soccer program and we can go women's golf and track and field and all that. But when we're looking at the big ones that are on campus, it's going to take a lot, or you're just going to be like, we don't care. And we've known this when I first started following the women's programs. I was impressed with Hunter Yurchek because he was going to these games. He was showing face, and he was at a softball game when a baseball game, when LSU was in town. He was at the softball. So I was like, oh my gosh, he cares. It's going to be a different deal. But now we're seeing a few years down the road that he don't care.
Yeah.
So
we'll see what happens.
Yeah. That's our rant when it comes to the NIL. I mean, we're really starting to see we do need a change at the AD. We do need a change. We need somebody that's going to come in and really fund these programs, but we're also seeing the negative side of NIL, because we're going to see the basketball and football programs get funded and all the other ones are going to be left to fend for themselves. But you know what? If you would have followed with the raffle, if you would have done it to where other programs could eat and you could use the 20 million for other things, there's a way around it, because you're looking at Texas Tech and what they're doing for all their programs. They have somebody coming in and funding all their programs, but when you're getting $3,400 a week, or the payout's $3,400 on your Razorback raffle, I mean,
hey, they got 2 weeks to prepare for the next one. So
Yeah.
Let's see what they do with that.
All right. Adam, you got anything else before we wrap it up?
I do not.
All right. Well, want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Thank all of our sponsors, all of our fans. We'll be back Thursday night, 6:05, right here, Hog Talk Podcast. For Adam Hall, I am Porter Hayes, and we will catch you on Thursday.